I want you guys to introduce yourself first. Brief, tell us where you're at, what you've been doing, but don't say your fast fact, because I'm going to say those. I made them each give me a fun fact about themselves so I can share it with all of you guys. Chris, you can start.
Hi, I'm Chris Rakenna from MobileNet Interactive, and we specialize in mobile application design and development and mobile strategy, of course. Been working at the company for over 2.5 years now as a co-founder, and do everything from business development to actual hands-on development. So that's me.
And your fun fact is that people call you Android fanboy. Do you want to explain yourself?
Yeah, I did give iOS platform a good try on iPhone, iPad, everything. I mean, it's a good platform. It's not right for me. I like more versatility in what I can do, the capabilities of Android, and the wide variety of hardware available, less restrictions. I could sort of go on and on about benefits I like about Android.
Is that your Twitter handle? Is that how we find you? Android fanboy?
No, so you can find me at CE Rakenna.
I'm Matt Mahoney. I'm a product manager at TripAdvisor. Our team manages the tablet and mobile implementations for the company across all platforms, so iOS, Android, Windows Phone, BlackBerry. And we recently relaunched our mobile offering, so if you aren't already a TripAdvisor user, please upgrade to the most recent version. And if you're not a TripAdvisor user, you should download it today.
And you now offer mobile ads on your mobile web experience, which is very exciting.
Yes.
Okay. And your fast fact or fun fact is that you put yourself through college by performing low-quality murder mystery dinner theater.
Yes. Emphasis on low quality.
And do you want to explain that you were the one who always did it?
Oh yeah, it was one of those things where at the end, the audience gets to vote on who did it, and based on their votes, the ending is different, and we only had one ending, and it was always me who did it. So no matter how they voted, I was always the killer.
Hi, I'm Mike Putnam. I lead mobile and tablet for Rulala. If you don't know Rulala, we're an e-commerce business headquartered in Boston. We're about 600 people. And we focus on helping people find a life of style. We started out really focusing on women, so a great place to find awesome brands at private sale prices. That's what we do. So joined them about 4 months ago, and it's been a lot of fun. Before that, I was at John & Mobile, which is a mobile marketing startup, and before that, I was at TripAdvisor. So Matt and I work closely together. And know each other from there, and before that, did a mobile startup. So.
And your fun fact is that you're a self-proclaimed tech junkie, and you have 8 different devices connected to your TV. And if anybody can guess all 8, he'll give you a discount on the next Rulala sale. Just kidding.
Scary thought.
All right, so let's jump in. So I want to first ask you guys, what makes a really great mobile experience? Any one of you. Don't be shy.
I think it's really quite simple, and that it's the app or the website does what you want it to do really fast. I think that's the basic foundation. It seems obvious, but it's amazing how many people get that wrong. And I loved hearing from the head of the Dunkin' Donuts mobile strategy, because he said, I think it was no fluff, all function. And a lot of people add a lot of fluff, but the function doesn't work. That's bad. One thing we've done since I came to Rulala is just fix a lot of bugs, and our users love it. They appreciate it. We get reviews in the App Store that say this app never crashes, and so I think the foundation needs to be solid.
Yeah, I agree with Mike. It's fulfilling a need quickly and efficiently in a way that utilizes the capabilities of the phone appropriately. Emphasis on appropriately. So, if I'm trying to find a place to eat, my phone knows where I am. It can tell me places nearby, but that doesn't mean that I need that kind of a thing all the time, or from all the different apps on my phone. Like, just because there's a feature on the phone doesn't mean that it's right for your app, and doesn't mean that every app needs to use it. So it's making sure that you're using the phone in a way that makes sense both for your app and for the user.
Couldn't agree more with you guys. But just to build a little more on that is, of course, UX, design is key here to keep your application simple. You really can't try to replicate your website in a small screen. So, some people try to do that and it just gets too confusing and overwhelming. And so KISS is the key word here. And then also what's great is, using the device capabilities like location, other, things you can tap into to find out information about the user and what content is going to be relevant and useful to them based on those parameters. So try to personalize the content and you'll give them a much better experience.
Yeah, so I want to spend a couple minutes on what you just said about personalization. So you guys said functionality is really important in a mobile app or the mobile experience and making it great. But what really reigns outside of functionality? Is it the personalization? Is it the content? What do you guys think?
I think that usability is of the utmost importance, and that's not to say that content and personalization aren't important, but no matter how good your content is, if I can't use your app, I'm going to get rid of it immediately. And like on everybody's phone, there's one button that closes the app and is the easiest button to find by design. Whereas on a website, on a desktop, you actually have to work to close something. So you're much less invested in closing an app. And for the most part, the apps I use are free, so it costs me nothing to get rid of it. So the usability of it is the thing I consider first. But then if it doesn't have good content, I'm not going to use it for very long. So I see usability as as the most important, and then content second. And personalization kind of falls under content, really. It's every app doesn't have to be personalized, but if the content is improved by making it more personal, then that can be very powerful.
I would build on that. I think the apps or the mobile websites that have the best usability, you know the term delight, right? They delight you, and it just works so well that you love it. And we can, I can think of lots of different apps I've used where the first time I used it, I loved it, like Pandora or Uber, where it just works so well. And if you it's interesting to look at the Apple Design Awards. They give awards out every year for different apps and what they cite there. And it's funny, some of the things they mention, they're like subtle use of animations to give feedback to the user. And it's those little things that really delight people. In our app, one thing I'm proud of is you can shop by looking at images, right? And this is fashion, it's image-based, and you can just swipe through high-resolution images and see 50 products in 50 seconds. And that's really, really fun. And it gives you a smile, and I think that's a nice thing.
So you guys are talking a lot about the app experience, which is great, and we know from research that consumers are spending a lot more time in-app than on the mobile web, but are you still investing in your mobile web properties?
Yes, very heavily. So a lot of our traffic is from search, so mobile web is very, very important to us, and it is absolutely not a second-class citizen in any way. So our feature set is almost identical in app versus web. So yes, we're very much thinking about the mobile web.
And for us, it's interesting because there are definitely a lot of people who come into the web. It's important. I think it can be overwhelming because all of a sudden you have your desktop website, your mobile website, maybe your tablet website, your iOS, Android, Windows Phone, etc. And how do you maintain all these different experiences? And I think if you do all of them, you probably won't do them well. I think one thing on web that is quite interesting is responsive design, and people have heard about that, where you have one design for your website and it works on all different devices based on the width of the device. I think that's super powerful, and it's a great way to maintain your feature set across all of your different platforms without killing your engineers.
So Chris, can you add to that? Because I know that you guys do a lot of design and you have a lot of background in that. Can you just add to it?
Yeah, definitely. Mobile web will certainly be a place to start for a lot of brands and organizations. One of the great benefits is that if you have everything available on a nice web view that works, let's say, mobile friendly or mobile optimized, you're giving a much greater experience to people who are discovering your content through, say, social media, through links that they find anywhere on the web or other mobile webs. You can't very easily link to content inside an app. People do share apps, but they share content much more than they'll share an app. There are some capabilities that are coming to fruition at this point to link to content inside of apps, but it's still in early stages.
And do you guys, I'm going to bring up measurement because I know it's a hot topic, especially for all of us who are on the agency side. And there's a lot of different views of what mobile measurement should be, what it is, if we're there, if we have a long way to get there. Do you guys have any thoughts that you want to share on measurement? Are we there? Do you think we need a standard mobile measurement across the board?
I think the basic, you can get the basics, but it's really hard to get all the systems to work well together. I think if you, especially if you have native apps and web, because often if you're on the web, you're using something, basically you have a web analytics suite, and then if you're native, you're using something like Localytics locally or Flurry, and those systems are totally different, and it's hard to get them to talk to each other. And so, you know, if you're trying to optimize your conversion across the board, just getting the systems to share information is kind of a nightmare. In our case, we have those two different systems, and then we also have a customer relationship management system where we're trying to do segmentation and targeting, and then we also have a business intelligence system for reporting, and getting all four of those coordinated is an even bigger headache. So one thing that, and I'd say we're not there yet, we're just getting started. One of the things we're looking into is tag management, where you can centrally manage your tags, and it updates those tags across all of your different platforms. That's very interesting. It adds overhead, but I think in the end it helps a lot.
Yeah, I agree that we're not quite there yet. So TripAdvisor is in somewhat of an advantageous position in this regard, in that our app is a hybrid app. So it's a native header and footer with a web view in the middle. So we're able to leverage our tracking capabilities on the web within the app as well. So we actually have a better time of it. So.
Chris, any thoughts against measurement?
Well, I'm not an expert in overall measurement, but we use Flurry Analytics in most of our applications, which you can get started with that for free and captures all kinds of analytical data. You know, you can customize the kind of information you want to capture, probably very similar to Localytics that many of you are probably familiar with.
So I just want to shift for a second and talk about brands and budgets. So I mean, mobile is huge. We know it's reached critical mass. Why don't you guys think that advertisers' budgets haven't caught up to where mobile really is?
I think a huge part of that is people use zero-based budgeting, and they say, well, I spent this much last year. Let's increase it. What percentage should we increase it by? And I think it's totally the wrong approach for mobile, because mobile is growing faster than any technology in history. And if you do that, you'll always be a year behind. And a year in mobile is a long time.
I just think it has a lot to do with nobody's really figured out how to win on mobile. So there's a lot of uncertainty about the best way to proceed, so people just kind of dabble a little bit and don't jump in head first. So yeah, the thing that I hear most from partners when we talk about kind of mobile integration opportunities is, so what are you doing on mobile? And they really don't have any clear idea of what they want to do. They're just looking to us to provide a solution. So I think it's really just it will come in time, but people just aren't ready to fully adopt a mobile ad strategy.
I mean, do you think measurement also plays a piece of that because we don't have a standard measurement in place? You just took your mic away. I'm not sure why. I wasn't sure if it was something you said.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty still in the space, so it could definitely be a factor.
So talk to me, guys, about the one thing you're most proud of that you've done in the mobile space, either with Rue or TripAdvisor or any of your past experiences.
So I mentioned at the top, we just recently completely redesigned our mobile apps and web experience from the ground up. So if you had used it before and you go back and use it today, it's a significantly better experience. We changed the entire navigation structure. It's a much more photocentric design. It's a very, very clean and, I like to think, beautiful app experience now. And then more personally, a couple months back, I managed a project to redesign our commerce flow. So if it used to be a rather terrible experience to book a hotel through TripAdvisor, we would send you to a partner site. If you didn't like it, you had to go back and then bounce back and forth and back and forth. And we updated it to be a meta experience, so we show all the partner information within the TripAdvisor app, and it's delighted our users, which is nice.
We've had evolution in our company as far as our design principles and everything, and it's pretty much evolved along with the evolution of these various platforms. So like Matt was referring to, new ways of navigation. So one of the big things, for example, on Android, you have a menu button that you don't have on iOS, which could be considered a good or a bad thing. But the approach that we're going with now is that we will use the standard navigation patterns that are available in these platforms, which now on Android pretty much ignores the menu button. So now everything is on a button that you can actually see on the screen, so people know it's there. It's much more usable. The menus slide out from the left, and it's just much more easy to navigate than it was even just a year or year and a half ago.
One project that Matt and I worked on together was the TripAdvisor tablet app, where we rebuilt that and saw just how quickly traffic on tablets was exploding with the advent of the iPad. And the challenge was seeing how quickly Android tablets were growing as well. How do you build something that works on all those different devices? You have the 8-inch Samsung tablet, the 7-inch Samsung tablet, the Kindle Fire, the iPad, now the iPad mini. You could go crazy trying to get it to work on everything, but what we did is we built an all HTML app that was designed to work on a small 7-inch device or as big a tablet as you want, and it worked. All in HTML. It was hard, but it works really well. There's a big map you can move around, and I was excited. Phil Schiller, the VP at Apple, in his keynote, held it up on an iPad mini and said, "This is a great customer experience." So I was proud of that.
Do you guys think in mobile we're going to face the same concerns that we're currently facing in display from a privacy standpoint and cookies? I know that Apple blocks cookies, but Android allows them. Let's talk a little bit about that. Where do you think we're going to net out with privacy in mobile?
I don't think that the general public thinks about it in the same way. Like I don't think people realize, because privacy is a much bigger concern on mobile. Like there's so much information on this, it's almost terrifying. Like I know, or the phone knows where I am and what direction I'm heading, all the places I've been throughout the day, but nobody really thinks twice about accepting all the permissions on an app they just downloaded. I saw a study recently where 1 in 2 people in the study were willing to provide their location for, I think it was a $5 gift certificate. 20% were if they got a $1 gift certificate. If a website asked you to tell them what room in your house you were for $5, I don't think anyone would respond. But we have to be careful with the information we're collecting. So if you're using it, you have to protect it. Or if you're collecting it, you have to protect it. And hopefully there will never be a large public outcry about the kind of information that we're using on mobile.
I think those privacy lines of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, they're changing all the time and getting redefined. And you mentioned Apple, where it used to be that in an app you could get the unique device ID of your phone. And there were all these scandals of things happening with that. I think there was a member of the FBI who had a laptop and it was hacked, and for some reason they had like 500,000 unique device IDs on there, and people were very concerned. And so now I think in the last few months, Apple has just made it so you can't get that anymore, and instead they have their version of a cookie, which you can delete whenever you want. I'm sure that like maybe 1 in 10,000 people know where it is. It's 15 menus deep, but they did add that. And so even their line is changing. And I think it will continue to. And I think getting into mobile, you have to expect to make mistakes. You're going to try stuff, you're going to make mistakes, and you just got to learn. And the permissions example is a great one, where on our Android app, we asked for several permissions that we actually didn't need, and it damaged our reviews. People do read those. So we were saying, can we make phone calls? Can we send text messages? And shockingly, people didn't like that. But we changed it, and now they do.
Right. So yeah, even though it may be a very small percentage of people who are really concerned about these kinds of things, they obviously can make a big deal out of it, especially with social media and everything going viral. So it's something that we all have to be somewhat concerned about going forward. But I think it'll continue to evolve in a subtle way. You know, like Apple has removed that unique device ID from the platform now that you can't use it. It really doesn't affect the users. I mean, they may have less content personalization because the apps or brands know less about them, which I think is, in general, is not a great thing because you want to see things that are relevant to you and your interests. But I think things will become slightly more and more restrictive as we move on.
So what do you guys think your greatest learning is so far with mobile, whether it be with your app or your mobile experience or?
We've learned that the hierarchy of information on mobile is completely different from everywhere else, and kind of surprisingly so. Like, I think most people, when they look at a screen, they're very concerned with kind of what is on the screen when you first see it, what's below the fold. We found that the fold isn't really a concept on mobile as much as it is on a traditional website. So, we in a project, I guess it was a few months ago, we were looking at kind of where things should live on a page, and the thinking was, okay, this particular piece is very important for us, so it should be near the top. But we tested it in different places, and it turned out that it actually did the best down the bottom, at the very, very bottom of the page. So people were more than willing to scroll all the way down to get what we viewed was a very, very important piece of content, and the engagement with it remained identical, and in some cases actually went up without hurting any of the other metrics on the page. So really, it kind of changed the way we thought about design in general in a positive way.
I think that's a great one. It's don't trust your own intuition, test. And one of the hardest things is that it's really hard to do A/B testing on native apps. It's very difficult. I think things are just getting started there. One thing I would add is, I forget the name of the designer. Somebody in here probably knows it, but the famous designer from Brown that Joni Ive from Apple idolizes, he had this great saying, which is less but better. And I think that's one lesson for me on mobile is, say you're developing a new app and you have 20 features. I'd say cut that number in half and do those 10 better. Every time I've done that, it has been a good thing.
I think also, just to go to that, be okay with failing and continuing to learn, right? So we always say test small, learn big, and react quickly to it.
Yeah, fail harder.
Yes, exactly. So how are you guys tying social and mobile, that experience together?
Well, in our apps, we do almost everything we can to integrate social media to help the brands leverage social media sharing. Obviously, popular networks like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn in some of our apps, Tumblr, even Foursquare. People will, see these options in your app if you highlight them, and they'll, if they use that network, they, a certain percentage of them will share. So, it's worth, using those features and getting, the word out about your content or your app or news that you have, your blog, etc. But you also want to measure, that sharing, which, there are various ways. Again, Flurry Analytics can be built right into the app, or on your backends, we also track how many times people share on various networks and how many clicks those shares drive. So we have custom reports that we have on some of our platforms that the client just can go and log on and see all of these different social media statistics.
So somewhat surprisingly, our mobile products do not highly leverage social media at the moment. So if you go to our desktop app, there is a very, very deep integration with Facebook. We're an instant personalization partner. So if you come to the site and have an active Facebook session, we'll be able to customize the experience to show you or to surface content from your social graph. So you can see friends who have written reviews, places your friends have been, and it's very, very prominent on the site. On mobile, however, we've been somewhat judicious with rolling out those features because we don't want to, for lack of a better term, kind of plaster all of the features on the mobile experience. We're kind of trying to be judicious with what is most important on mobile. So right now it's a login mechanism, so you can log in with Facebook, but we're kind of still still trying to crack the code on what features are most relevant on mobile, but we plan to kind of have a lot more within the next few months.
We're just getting started with social at Rulala. We're excited about the opportunities. Fashion's inherently social. People love to talk about it. And I think one of the questions that we've been asking ourselves as we kick this off is, what do people really want to talk to their friends about? What do they really want to share with them? And it's not an easy question, and I think you have to test things. And I think TripAdvisor's experience there is really telling, where they went into social early on with a theory that people would want to ask their friends for travel advice and say, I'm going to Chicago for the weekend, where should I stay? And they tried that in a big way, huge way, millions of dollars spent, months of development time, and nobody wanted to do it. Big lesson. And then they pulled back, and then they found ways to, and this is TripAdvisor's strength, is they just experiment incredibly fast and try 100 things, and half of them fail, and then the other 50 keep going. But then they said, well, instead of doing that, let's make it really easy for people to tell their friends what they've done. And so here, what have you done in Paris? Check off 5 things. What have you done in New York? And that actually worked really well, and they showed it on the website, and it's really increased engagement. So it's a fundamental question.
So I've already gotten the 5-minute warning, so I'm probably down to 3 minutes. One more question, and then we're going to do a fun lightning round. So 1 year from now, what are we going to be talking about in mobile?
We're going to find that mobile is monetizing a lot better as people just become more used to transacting on mobile. I think the line between mobile and tablet is going to get a lot blurrier because Samsung insists on releasing larger and larger phones. I think they announced an 8-inch phone at E3, so that will be interesting. And then I think we're going to all be talking a lot more about tablet in general.
Bigger pockets to hold bigger phones.
I did see a lady on the subway in New York this week with one of those huge Samsung phones next to her ear, and she looked ridiculous. Just saying.
They continue to sell an awful lot of them, so.
Not for me.
Well, we're seeing quite a lot of machine-to-machine or device-to-device data sharing and communication going across. We actually have a client who has a Bluetooth device that you can connect to your car that captures data from your car into your phone, and then that gets processed on our back-end server and such. So I think we'll see a lot more of that happening between devices that you wear as well. Like, for example, a smartwatch will connect to your smartphone. Your camera may connect to your smartphone. There's these really awesome cards called iFi that I think they're still growing, that will automatically beam photos to your phone if you have that kind of card in your professional camera, because at least, my camera, the photos are not up to snuff is what I want. So
we're going to do this panel 1 year from today and see if you're right. Just kidding. Okay, so lightning round, 1-word answers. First thing that comes to mind, okay? There's only 7 of these, and I already know your answer for the first one, but Apple or Android?
Android.
Android.
Apple.
Okay. Apps or mobile web? Which one do you prefer for yourself?
Well, personally, apps.
For myself, apps.
Apps.
Okay, what's your favorite app? And you can't say your own.
I don't know if it's really my favorite app, but I do love Foursquare a lot just because it's a great design and it's easy to use, and it constantly gives you feedback with everything you do. There's some message popping up giving you some kind of information.
Google. I'm embarrassed. It's like rooting for the Empire in Star Wars, but the Google Now execution continues to delight me.
Uber. The experience compared to the alternative is just so much better.
So is your phone always on by your bedside even when you sleep, or do you turn it off?
Always on.
Silent mode at night.
Always on.
What do you use your mobile phone for most?
Settling arguments about obscure cultural facts.
I think I use it mostly for location-based information, in particular maps, just to get around and see where I'm going and how to get there.
Communication, just email and texting, use a lot.
In the morning, do you reach for your coffee first or your phone?
Phone.
Phone is right next to my bed.
Phone.
Right. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Do you want to take some
Yeah,
questions?
does anybody have any questions? I know everybody wants to go home and get outside, but does anybody have any questions for these guys? I mean, you got Rulala and TripAdvisor up here, guys. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Awesome.